Okay, for those, if you are at a global march, please call in. Please encourage someone to call in. Let us know how it's going. We're just doing an informal live stream through Global Skywatch Radio, which you can get to from going to globalskywatch.com/live. This is just informal. We would love to see some people who are live on scene call in. And the call-in number, I'm going to give that to you right now. The call-in number is 605 562 3140, 605-562-3140, and the access code is 156230. And if you didn't get that, just go to globalskywatch.com/live, and the number and the access code are right there. Please call in anyone who would like to contribute. Let us know what's going on the scene where you are. I have this notification for this live stream posted to the top of the Global Skywatch Facebook group. So I would love to have some people who are joining us in the chat. Let other people who are out in the march somewhere know that we're doing this, and call in to the talk show. And you can get the phone number to call in and the access code at globalskywatch.com/live. I do see that we have another caller in right now. I don't know if you were interested in talking or just listening, but your number ends in 20. If you'd like to talk and let us know what's on your mind.
Hi there, Russ. How are you?
Hi, who's this?
Hey, this is Nicole and Peter calling you from Vermont. How you doing?
Oh, good. Nicole and Peter. So how's it going up there in Vermont?
Hey, we couldn't get anyone together to march, and we went out today as a family and started in a roundabout passing out flyers. And in about an hour, we had about 10 people with us in the roundabout helping with the flyers and horns honking and the whole business going on. It's amazing how many people actually did know about it. I was very shocked to find out because we couldn't get a group together before this. So we did pretty good for a few hours out there today.
Oh, that is really awesome. So you went out and you just started doing it, and then people kind of caught on and gathered around, and it caught on. That is awesome. So what else? Tell us more about what's going on and how it's going.
Don't be discouraged. I want to let everyone out there know that you still have time. You can get up. You can get out there with your flyers and just find a local public place out front of a library or in a roundabout somewhere, and you can still get something done. Even just a few people. I learned that myself today, and I also wanted to pass on, if I can, we put together a petition at the White House petition page, and if you want the link for that, go into the Chemtrails Global Skywatch Forum, Russ's Forum. That link for the petition is there. It's a voice that all of us can share together to stop this geoengineered nightmare. So hit the forum and find the petition link. We need all hands on deck.
Absolutely. For those who are listening, if you go to globalskywatch.com and if you look at the top menu in the middle, there's a menu column called Activism, and under there's petitions. And their petitions are right there where you can access those petitions as well. So what's going on right now? How is the feeling? How are people responding to you?
I feel pumped. I mean, we just got back. We spent a few hours out there, and when it started to die down, we called it quits. But it was just random. So I was really, really surprised to find out that there are people that know, and the important thing is to get out there and then you'll make those contacts, because you won't make them unless you try.
Yeah, that's so true. But it's amazing what you can do if you try. So you ended up, how much information do you think you actually got out there? And before you answer that, let me just encourage people who are calling. This is just an informal public conference for people who are doing the global march to report to us, let us know how it's going or how it went today. Just go to globalskywatch.com/live. If you know somebody who's at an event or you are at an event, please call in. The number is at globalskywatch.com/live. Call into the console and join the conference. We're just having an informal conference call, and let us know how it went and what the feeling was out there. So go ahead. So how was it? Go ahead.
So yeah, we enjoyed it. It was a few hours out there. We're here in central Vermont. We live outside of Ludlow, but our friends are up in Middlebury, so we decided to go up there today and just pass out flyers. I brought about 100 with me. I knew that I was probably going to be sticking most of them on the windshield, but to my surprise, I didn't put one single flyer on a windshield this afternoon because when we got up into the roundabout and started waving up our signs, we started getting people honking their horns. We started getting people that wanted to get out, wanted more information, and passing the flyers out became easy after that. So a lot of people are intimidated with the flyer thing. Just keep your discussion very brief. Let them know that we're being poisoned and that these planes are not spraying contrails or, what people are saying that they're doing. There is actually toxic poisons, and just give them the flyer and just move on because people don't like a big, long discussion. But we did really good passing out the flyers, and I feel empowered. I feel like there's something more that we could do here.
Isn't it great? I mean, when you get out there, I've heard this from everybody who's done this, is sometimes people are a little timid to go out and talk to the public, or even if you don't talk to the public, just make an appearance on a busy road with a sign or something, that once you do something, you realize the impact that you have, and you do feel empowered, and it just feels great to actually be doing something.
That's right, Russ. Yeah, it's going to take every single one of us, so do the best you can, folks.
Are you doing anything in the future? Do you have anybody who you'd like to have contact a group there, or if people are interested in the Vermont group, what do they do?
Well, today I gave out my email address to quite a few people that I came across while we were passing out flyers. So I'm hoping from there we can sort of build a little coalition and get things done together. We've been going on Sundays and putting flyers on the windshields of people when they're at church, because church parking lots are one place where it's quiet and you can go through quickly. But I'd like to have more of a force behind me, and today I feel like we might be able to get off the ground and get something done with that regard. So I'm hopeful.
Well, I want to just encourage people. If you want, send me your email address, and just send me an email at russ@globalskywatch.com, and then anyone who wants information, wants to have me put them in contact with people in Vermont where they can coordinate, I will forward your email to the Vermont group so that we can get more people involved. So is that okay with you?
Oh, that'll be great. I'll make sure to do that as soon as I hang up here. Fight on, everyone. Fight on.
Fight on. Thank you so much, and thank you for the work that you're doing. It means very much to me, someone who physically suffers smelling it, tasting it in the air. I'm one of the people who do. Most people don't, but there is a certain percentage population who do. Do you have any health issues as a result, or do you smell and taste in the air, or are you not?
We've got them all. We've got every health issue. We've got migraines daily, stinging in our ears that just never ends, nosebleeds, heart palpitations, everything that's on our petition, which you can access from the Global Skywatch Forum, are our symptoms, and we share your misery, Russ. And I heard about what you're going through, and it just really rips my heart out. I just cannot believe that this is happening and that these people are getting away with this. This is nothing short of genocide or homicide. It's killing everything on the ground, and here in Vermont, we have no living trees left. You're hard-pressed to find any kind of healthy tree here. It's unbelievable, and it's happening so quickly. So we really got to cover a lot of ground quick.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Same thing here. Every symptom you mentioned are happening to more and more people that I talk to. These are all symptoms of metal poisoning and toxicity. These are all things that are coming from the air. And as someone who smells and tastes this stuff, let me tell you, it has changed my life. That's why I'm so involved in this, because I just suffer daily from it. Not everybody knows they're suffering, or that their migraine or their sleep issues or their heart palpitations may be related to this, but everybody's affected because these metals are toxic. But thank you so much for what you do, and thank you for calling in.
You're really doing an amazing job with the Global Skywatch Forum on Facebook. We have more than 31,000 members around the world sharing their stories and their images. People, you are not alone. Get on Facebook, Chemtrails, Global Skywatch, and we'll see you there. Thanks so much, Rush.
Thank you. If you know anyone else who wants to call in and be on the live stream, please let them know, and thank you again.
I'll let them know. Take care.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, this is Russ Tanner from Global Skywatch. We're doing an informal live stream right now, trying to bring people together from the Global March. Gary, I know you've got your phone muted. Gary's in Orlando. We just talked to someone in Vermont. If you've got someone who wants to talk to us, Gary, just unmute your phone. If not, I'll just wait for you. You can just speak up whenever you're ready, Gary. Whenever you're ready is fine. If you're listening and you know somebody who is at a march right now, have them call in and give us a report as to what's going on. I'd really love to hear from you. So give us a call and let us know what's going on in your march, in your area, so we can encourage others. Let us know how people responded and how everything's going. We've got a few people listening right now. We've got a few people listening live stream. The number's growing. We also have a chat. And I guess I will just see if anybody's interested in calling in and sharing. Go to globalskywatch.com/live. This is an informal live stream we're putting together for global marchers to report in. Let us know how things are going out there in the streets. Or if you've already come home from one, because it's already past 4 o'clock on the East Coast, call in and let us know how it's going. The number to call in, you can find that number at globalskywatch.com/live. And I'll give it to you over there right now just in case you want it. 605-562-3140. And you have to dial an access code, which is 156230. You can find all of this information at globalskywatch.com/live. I want to hear from you right now. If you're out or have been out at a march right now, if you know somebody's out, call them now and tell them to call in right now so we can get a report as to what's going on. For those of you who are new to this subject, we are talking about what is popularly known as chemtrails. It's also called global geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. It's also known as chemical aerosols. What these are the trails that you see behind jets in the sky. I am involved in this because I smell and taste the aerosols that are being released as they come to the ground, and I make no apologies for reporting that I taste and smell these things, because I have had hundreds of people contact me who have the same super sensitive sense of taste and smell, and they also, like myself, have health issues that are related to the spraying that is taking place. This is very hard for some people who never studied government corruption, who don't really know how the world works. It's hard for people to accept this because the implications are very scary, the implications are huge, and it changes your worldview over time. But it is absolutely real, and it is happening, and the people who are living right now are facing one of the largest issues, I believe the largest crime against humanity that has ever happened in human history. This is not an alarmist statement. I am not making money. I actually lose money doing this. I have to pay out of my pocket for a server, for a live stream account. I'm not a rich person. I work hard every day, and I make just enough to make ends meet, and I sponsor this live stream out of my own pocket because I am suffering. My health is suffering. Most people who are suffering as a result of the spraying don't know it. They have migraines during the day, they have heart palpitations, they have nosebleeds, they have trouble sleeping at night, they feel irritable, grumpy, they feel panic attacks, they might be having digestive issues, memory issues, all kinds of symptoms this kind of toxicity can cause. The chemicals we have tested here in Maine, I'm outside Bangor, Maine. I did a rainwater test and came up with 600 micrograms per cubic liter of aluminum in the rainwater. And aluminum is one of the most common things that we're finding in this substance that's being sprayed. People are reporting at Global Skywatch. We actually have a form where we're collecting rainwater, blood, snow samples. We're collecting those from all over the world, and we have many now. Just go to globalskywatch.com and look in the menu. You can see where our tests are collecting. People are reporting barium and aluminum, high levels of barium and aluminum. Now, 600 micrograms per cubic or per liter that we have outside Bangor that I collected personally and sent to a lab is 6 times higher the amount of aluminum that's allowed in drinking water by the EPA. In other words, there was 6 times more aluminum in the rainwater in the sample I sent to the lab than the EPA allows in drinking water. Now, if that wasn't enough, in California, like Shasta County, Mount Shasta area, they're having many, many times higher the aluminum amounts. This is going on all over Western Europe, all over the United States. So if you know somebody who doesn't believe in this, who is skeptical, have them call in. I'll be more than happy to talk to them or bring them to this live stream. Go to Global Skywatch. Send them right now. Send a link. Send an email. I'm going to stay on the air for a little while longer. If we get enough interest, I'll just keep this going. You don't believe in it? You have a skeptical relative? globalskywatch.com/live. If you're at a Global March event, please call in. You can find the phone number to call in and the access code at globalskywatch.com/live. My name is Russ Tanner, and I'm the founder of Global Skywatch. We also have the largest group on Facebook dealing with this subject. We have over 31,000 people. Right now it's at 31,828 people. That's a huge group. And these are people who are concerned about the chemical aerosols that are being released in the sky, showing up in the bark of trees, showing up in animal tests, showing up in the soils, showing up in rainwater, showing up in the snow, and showing up in blood samples of adults and children. Aluminum is very toxic. It leads to things such as Alzheimer's. It can lead to fatigue. It suppresses your immune system. It suppresses phagocytosis, which is the white blood cells eating foreign matter. That's basically what it is. That's what the process is called. This is one of the substances we're seeing. Another substance is barium. We're seeing high levels of barium show up. We're seeing high levels of mercury show up in some of the dust tests. My personal dust test showed 0.2 micrograms and a small amount of dust that was collected. And we're having other anomalies and health issues that point to barium and mercury poisoning. And this is all coming from the sky based on our tests. This is what it all points to. We're seeing this is a monumental historic event. Nothing like this has ever happened in history, and people who are concerned and not getting paid for this are putting their time and effort into doing this. That's what I'm doing on this Saturday afternoon when I could be doing other things. I am sitting here. It has been a bad spray day here east of Bangor, Maine. I can smell and taste it in the air. Right now it's not as bad as it was earlier today, but it goes up and down as the plumes that are released travel along the ground or descend down on us. The intensity in the air rises and falls correspondingly. I want to hear from people. If you're interested in talking, please call in, talk to us. I'd love to chat with you. Go to globalskywatch.com/live. The phone number to call in is right there. You have to dial the phone number, and then you'll be asked for an access code by a recording. And as soon as you dial that access code, you'll be live with us, and you can chat with us, or you can just listen in, whatever you want to do. But if you're at a global march, if you're skeptical, or if you have health issues that are related to the spraying, please call in and share that with us so skeptical people or people who are searching for answers for their health problems may be able to explore this as a possible cause. Look for aluminum, look for barium. While we're waiting for people to call in, we do have a growing number of people who are listening to our stream right now. Again, this is just a quick, informal live stream that I'm doing this afternoon simply because of the global march against chemtrails that's taking place in countries all over the world right now. I want to just talk with you a minute about, I had a heart attack, I'll make this very brief, a couple years ago, and after doing 4 days worth of testing, they found nothing wrong with me except one thing. Very, very low potassium in my blood. Do you know somebody who's had a heart attack? Do you know somebody who's lost their life by heart attack, cancer, stroke, aneurysm, all things that can be associated with the substances we're breathing that are being sprayed? Aneurysms can be caused, strokes can be caused by the nanoparticle aluminum collecting in and blocking capillaries. The capillaries then expand like a balloon. They can break, and you can have aneurysms and strokes, which can be deadly. The heart attack I had very, very low potassium. And why is that significant? Because guess what? Barium, which is showing up in water tests, rainwater tests around the United States, Western Europe, and other countries, barium is a very powerful suppressant of potassium. And when potassium gets low enough in your blood, you will have heart fibrillations and eventually a heart attack. My potassium was extremely low. They could find nothing else wrong with my heart. The other thing that happened to me is on the Tuesday night, this happened on Sunday night, I was in the hospital for several days, went to the, had an ambulance ride and the whole thing. Never been in an ambulance in my life. Got in there. They were spraying Bangor on Tuesday night. This was late Sunday night that I went in the hospital. Tuesday night, they sprayed Bangor so hard that I asked a friend to bring in my wet mask. And what a wet mask is wet folded washcloths that I put over my nose and mouth, and I hold them on with a painter's mask from Home Depot. I actually have one sitting on my desk right here because I had to wear it today. It helps me tremendously to block out these particulates because HEPA filters don't work. On Tuesday night, they sprayed so hard, I had to wear that mask. And I was supposed to have a test at the hospital, and my nurse said he'd be back in a few minutes, was a male nurse, didn't show up for 8 hours. My IV alarm was going off. I called the desk from my hospital bed twice. They answered, said, we'll send somebody down. Never sent anybody down. Called a second time. I finally found a mute button, and all through the night, every 10 minutes, I had to hit the mute button on the IV machine, and I was up all night doing this. The next morning, the nurse comes in and says, I am so sorry, we missed your test. It's been chaos tonight. He says, I don't know. This is what he said to me. He said, I don't know what is going on, but everybody gets sick at the same time. All kinds of, and he said this. He said respiratory problems, heart problems. He said it's just crazy. He said the hospital was calling people in to help out. I was up on the other floors helping out. Everybody was just getting sick. Why do you think that is? Do you think that is just a fantastic coincidence? Is this what the skeptics believe? That events like this happen on the exact same nights at the same time? That spraying is intense? These particulates we are breathing are extremely toxic. And I know from firsthand observations, watching, because I can smell and taste it, I know when it's very intense in the air. And I have seen when the air is very bad, because it goes up and down all day long, the plumes blow through and it'll become really bad, and then over 45 minutes to an hour and a half, it'll get more mild, and it'll get bad again and mild, and it's up and down every day like this. And whenever it gets bad, people change. Their personalities change. They become like zombies sometimes. Children sometimes will get irritable and start fighting. But it changes people. Adults will start yawning and not talking anymore and zoning out. I've seen this over and over and over again. I know people have reported nosebleeds during heavy spraying events. I had that problem myself, where the nosebleeds happened during heavy spray events, and this was only when the air was really bad. This goes back to my heart attack too, is the pain that I had that led to that heart attack was identical to pain that I had been having for a few years previous. And that pain always 100% of the time increased as the intensity of the air, the particulate intensity of the air increased, and as the particulate intensity would decrease, that pain would decrease. And what I've determined that this is, it's inflammation. And aluminum is very, very inflammatory for some people. Inflammation can stop or hinder blood flow in your heart, in your body, and it can raise your blood pressure. And this is what happens with me. And my veins in my arms start popping out. It looks like I am a bodybuilder. My veins just start popping out, and I feel horrible. I feel pain. I have to walk like a 70-year-old man. I have to be very careful about moving around because my heart is pounding so hard. And it always, since 2005, when this began happening in the town I lived in, always correlates with the air being very, very intense in its smell and taste of metal and chemicals. Always. Never has failed in all of that time. I've never had problems like this before I started experiencing this in the town I lived in 2005, Jamestown, New York. That's where I was living at the time. So this is not a coincidence. This is a very real program that is going on, that I've had hundreds of people contact me and tell me that they smell and taste it as well. The smells and tastes are similar, although there's a variety of different aerosols. Some of them smell like sulfur, some smell like nail polish remover, acetone, aluminum, other types of metal. Some people report burnt plastic and burnt rubber, and other people have reported to me the smell of model cement glue. And these are all, every scent that I just named is something that I have personally detected in the air at different times. And I've also seen patterns where at night they'll spray a certain type, during the daytime they'll spray a certain type. And years ago they would spray, and a certain day that would be very mild. It was almost like pilots had a day off. So Thursday was actually a mild day, and this went on for 3 to 4 months. And Thursdays, I always knew when Thursday would come, it would be mild. After about 4 months, Friday became the mild day. Is this just a fantastic coincidence? Is this all just some conspiracy theory? No, it is not. It's a very real program that is happening over your heads, because high bypass turbofans that we see in the sky, mounted to all large aircraft, even the old Boeing 707s that originally had low bypass turbofans, have now all been retrofitted with high bypass turbofans, which were much more efficient. They burn less fuel per unit of air moved, and they do not produce trails. If you see trails coming out of a high bypass turbofan, there's only 2 possibilities. Only 2 reasons that can happen. Number one reason is it's a chemical aerosol being injected into the engine. Number 2, that engine may be a SPAY 512 water injection engine. But there are only about 50 jets flying today that use the SPAY 512, and there are thousands of jets in the air at any given time, and practically all of these now are in the UK. They're used on the BAC 111s, and they're in use in the most of them being decommissioned, but water injection is not used much anymore. It's very rare. So if you see a trail coming out of a jet, it doesn't matter whether it's long or short. It's not water, it's a chemical aerosol. And even water injection engines typically do not produce trails. It doesn't matter if it's high enough and cold enough, you won't see trails. And that's why in my entire life of sky watching, since I was long enough to know what an airplane was, I was watching the sky. I have never seen, ever, not once, seen a trail come out of an engine. If I did, I would have thought that there was something seriously wrong with the engine. High bypass turbofans are not capable of producing trails. And being one who has I have watched the trails being laid down in the beginning at very low altitudes, and within 30 to 40 minutes, the intense smell of chemicals or metal would come in the air. Within the space of about 60 to 90 seconds, it would be overwhelming. This is my experience. Well, today we're doing an informal live stream. This is Russ Tanner, Russ Tanner, the founder of Global Skywatch. And if you are at a global march, please call in. Let us know how it's going. Go to globalskywatch.com/live. Let us know how your event's going. How did people respond? Are people waking up? Because when I talk to people, they generally have really good reports. Gary has muted his phone. He's still online. He's going to get somebody to speak with us. As soon as he's ready, he's going to unmute his phone. He's in Orlando, and he's going to speak with us and let his people let us know how it's been going there in Orlando. But if you are somewhere else, it doesn't matter if you're in the UK. We have phone numbers in 13, 14, 15 different countries. UK, Scotland, Germany, wherever you are, If you're at a global march, we have a phone number for you. Call in. Go to globalskywatch.com/live. Call in and let us know how it's going with your march. If you know about a march and you're listening to this, please call those people and say, call in. Call in. We're going to record this and let people hear this. We want people to know how the marches are going. So we'd love to hear from you. And Gary, as soon as you're ready to have your people talk to us in Orlando, please let me know. Gary was kind enough to call in, and he's trying to arrange to have somebody from the Orlando group talk to us. But this is a very informal discussion. Just call the number. Go to globalskywatch.com/live, all small letters, LIVE. And the phone number and access code are right there. Call in and just chat with us. Let us know how your event is going. Now, I founded Global Skywatch not because I didn't have enough time on my hands and I needed a hobby. I did it because I am so angry that my life and my health have been robbed from me by the very government we pay taxes to. And I blame, of course, the people who are not involved, who don't want to know, who are pretending this doesn't exist. I'm not blaming the government directly, because governments always become corrupt. And we were warned by the people early on in this government in the United States, if you are not diligent to keep the government righteous, they will become corrupt, because governments always become corrupt by the industrialists in their corresponding country. And that's what's happened here. And we are all suffering because of it. Now, I would like to speak with anyone who'd like to call in. Go to globalskywatch.com/live, or I'll give you the phone number right now and the access code. Get ready to write it down. And you can call in and have a chat with us. Let us know what's on your mind. Even if you're not at a global march, I'd love to hear from you. Let's make sure that everybody knows we're working together on this. It doesn't matter what you believe in your life otherwise. It doesn't matter what work you do. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what country you live in. We are all experiencing this crime against humanity. And there will be a day, like Dane said today. I'm a co-host on the Geoengineering Watch Radio every Saturday. And by the way, you can listen to us on that radio show. It's every Saturday at 12 noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time at ucy.tv. It's called Geoengineering Watch Radio. Dane is the host of that show. I co-host and do technical work. And it's like he says, one day there will be Nuremberg-type trials for those who have covered this up, who have performed this crime against humanity. And we had somebody call in today who talked about, Corey called in today, talked about how an event out there, happened where someone who's in the public eye, I'll generalize this in case Corey wants to call in and tell the story herself. But generally speaking, we've seen this happen before, is that when public officials or people who are in the public eye of large organizations are confronted with the fact that we are being sprayed, oftentimes there's anger, there's ridicule, there's just a reaction from them that is really disproportionate. If they truly believe that this was just some silly conspiracy, they generally say, that's really silly, thank you very much, but we're going to move on. But that's not what these people do many times. Sometimes they get very angry. They get very accusatory. They get emotionally violent. Why? Why would there be such an emotional reaction? I'll tell you exactly why. Because at first, the truth is denied. Second, the truth is violently opposed. And finally, the truth is accepted as being self-evident. And some of these people who are becoming afraid, who are defending, who have been told in their public positions to tell the public that these are contrails, to lie to the public, are becoming afraid, realizing that there are tens of thousands of people who are very angry, and also that they themselves are being sprayed. And as they become angry and they become afraid, they have violent, irate, angry, or very, very ridiculing responses when they're confronted with this crime against humanity. So don't be intimidated. Don't be made afraid by people who ridicule you, or rather be encouraged, because the people who have reported into me about their marches, their public events, have told me very plainly and very openly that most of the public in the places they are, with few exceptions, most of the people are very receptive about this subject. Hand them a flyer, tell them briefly what's going on, and let them be on their way. But most of the people are very receptive. A lot of people, just like we had someone from Vermont call in a few minutes ago and talked with us, they're very receptive. The people are very receptive. The people are honking horns, and they're surprised. Here's something you might not expect. She actually said that they're surprised at how many people already know about this. And I believe that this is very true because I started spreading the word myself about amalgam, that's mercury-based dental fillings, back in 2000 when I learned about this. And I was just shocked because that had really wrecked my health. And after I had them removed, my health was tremendous for just under 5 years until the spraying started and my health once again started declining. During that 4.5-year period after my amalgam fillings were removed, my health was perfect. I never had a single health issue. I felt, slept, lived like I never did before. It was absolutely incredible. Now with the spraying, I'm having health symptoms again that I know are directly related to the spraying, because the health symptoms manifest in direct proportion to the intensity of the smell and taste of the metals in the air. So I started getting involved in telling people about this because I couldn't believe these fillings had mercury. I did not previously know that. And if I did, even as a child, I would say, why are you putting them in the most volatile environment in the human body? Why would you put something that has mercury in people's mouths? Because it's going to dissolve, it's going to deteriorate, it's going to off gas. I mean, even children who know about basic physics will tell you this. This is not just a horrible idea, it's criminal. This is poison, highly, highly toxic. So I started telling people about it. In the first few years, most people actually responded to me by saying, and I told strangers, I would go in stores and I'd say, yeah, did you know that those amalgam, those silver fillings contain mercury? And the most common response I received from people, this is the honest truth, they would say to me, oh, I just don't believe that the government would allow that to happen. After 5 years, I saw a shift. And people started saying, the most common response that I got from people is they said, yeah, you know what, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. I believe it, with the way the pharmaceutical industry controls the government. I mean, it was amazing, the shift in mentality in 5 years. And then at the end of 10 years, the most common response that I get from people, even now, is, yeah, I know about that. I had a friend, and me myself, I have the symptoms, or I had my fillings removed. Most people that I have contact with now know about it. They know about it. Even though many people still haven't removed their fillings, more and more people have. There's been a real rush to have this done. So just in a 10-year period, there's been a complete reversal in public opinion about this issue. Well, we have passed that deadline with chemical aerosols that are commonly called chemtrails, that is also called stratospheric aerosol geoengineering, SAG. These aerosols are now becoming more and more well known, and I'm hearing from people who go on protests that there's a surprising number of people who already know about this. So don't be discouraged. Tell people, print up business cards, buy flyers, run them off on your printer, whatever, hand them out, whatever you want to do. I would love to hear from anyone who's at a march. I'm going to stay on the radio here a little longer. I'd love to stay on as long as people want to call in and talk with us. But if anyone's at a march, just call in the number. Go to globalskywatch.com/live, or call the number that I'm about to give you, and tell us how the march is going. If the march is over, tell us how it went. How did people respond? What are tips and things we can learn for in the future? The number that you can call is 605-562-3140, and you'll need an access code once you call, and that'll pop you right into the console where you can talk to us directly and immediately, and I would love to hear from you. The access code is 156 230. So the number again is 605-562-3140, and the access code is 156230. Were you at a march today? Would you please call us? Let us know how it went. I would really love to hear from you. Let us know how people responded. Let us know things you've learned about how it can be better in the future. And Gary, anytime you're ready to talk to us, no rush if you're not ready, no rush at all. But if you have anybody there who'd like to talk to us, let us know how it's going there. Or if you yourself would like to fill us in, I know you've got your phone on mute on the console. Feel free to call anytime, or feel free to talk to us anytime, Gary. I would love to hear from you. I know we have a slowly increasing number of people who are listening to this live stream right now. We're talking about what is popularly called chemtrails, which is also called geoengineering or chemical aerosols. These are the lines behind the jets you see in the sky. Those jet engines are high bypass turbofans, and they do not produce trails. They never have produced trails. The trails you see behind them in the skies are intentionally injected aerosols. Very, very small aerosols that are so small that HEPA filters do not even remove them. The reason I know this is because I have tested air purifiers myself. As those plumes have descended, and I, like many others, have tasted and smelled those chemical aerosols in the air, and they have many different scents and tastes, things that I have never tasted or smelled before in this way, ever in the air, unless I was in a machine shop. The reason I know what aluminum tastes like is I've been in machine shops where they were grinding aluminum, and I've also ground aluminum myself when I would be building something or working on something, and I can taste the aluminum in the air from the aluminum dust that is generated. Well, except for those few times that I've been in that position and that's happened, I wouldn't know what aluminum tastes like. But now I have the taste of aluminum in the air going up and down all day long for the past 10 years, since 2005. And it's been happening much earlier than that in most areas. But the town I was in didn't really get hit hard until 2005. Up and down all day, the taste of aluminum and other chemicals would come through as those particulates would descend. And because I can smell and taste them, I have tested air purifiers. Many of them were HEPA filters. Now, HEPA traps particles down to 0.3 microns. I hope I have that right. I think it's 0.3 microns, or is it 3 microns? I think it's 0.3, somewhere around there. But I have tested a number of air purifiers that are based and that contain HEPA filters, and none of them remove the particles from the air. They remove other odors. They remove the taste of smoke. They remove other odors from the air, but the odors and the taste that are associated with the chemical aerosols, they did not touch. Children are being taught right now that these aerosols that they see coming out of these jets are condensation trails. Think about this for a minute. If that much water, when you see those plumes in the sky, those jet wings are 150 to 250 feet or more wide. Within a few seconds, those plumes spread out to 2, 3, 4, 5 times the width. And as time goes on, it goes more and more beyond that. The width of those wings. If jets emitted that much water, airports would be unusable. There would be water all over the runways, even on the driest, sunniest day. The amount of water that would be coming out to make a plume visible from thousands of feet or even miles away, wider than the wings, many times wider, and even plumes that spread out and stay in the sky to the point where it creates an overcast day, which I've seen and haven't captured on time-lapse for years. I did 3 years of almost continuous time-lapse documenting this. Even the local newspaper reported that we had the dimmest summer in history, and they didn't say a word about the cause, because the cause was these plumes that spread out, covered the sky, and created overcast conditions day after day after day. If this was water vapor, the amount of water that is coming out into the air, that would be coming out into the air at airports, would be filling the air, making it so dense, making runways so wet. You'd have plumes hundreds of feet wide being sprayed out onto the runways, hanging in the air like aerosols. These engines, high bypass turbofans, for those who do not know, they contain a turbine engine in the center core, kind of like if you have a donut. The center core is the turbine engine. Around that center core is a donut-shaped air pathway where air is blown from the fan that is in the front of the engine. That is the turning fan that you'll actually see turning when you look into the front of an engine on a large airliner, 737, A330, 747s, A380s, DC-9s, DC-10s, all of these jets that have been around for so many years, 727s, any of these jets, and you see these fans turning, those are just simply props in principle. They just suck air in the front of the engine and blow it out the back. 80 to 85% of the air that comes out of the back of a high bypass turbofan has just been blown through the engine. The remaining 10-15% of air is coming out of the turbine power plant, which is in the core of the engine, which blows air out of the center airstream of the back of that engine. And surrounding that center stream of air is a huge, powerful blast of air that is propelled by the fan that is at the front of the engine. That air is simply sucked in the front of the engine and blown out the back. Now we have seen, and this is amazing information you're about to hear, I hope you share it with other people. And before I share this with you, I do want to hear from people. I do want to hear from people who have been at a march today. Please go to globalskywatch.com/live, or if you're still at a march, get the phone number from that webpage, globalskywatch.com/live, and call in. Call the number right now, and I want to hear how your event went, how people responded, and tips for the future. Tell us your story. I want to know. We want to hear. This is an informal conversation among friends globally. I don't care what country you're in. We have 15 or more phone numbers in different countries where you can make a local phone call and speak with us right now. So please go to globalskywatch.com/live, all small letters, LIVE. Get the phone number and call in. Or you can go to our live stream. There's a link to our live stream where people are listening right now. The same address, globalskywatch.com/live. All right, here's the information I want to share with you, which is absolutely astonishing. We have a growing number of very close-up pictures of these jets that are releasing these chemical aerosols into the air, and we can see the plumes coming out the back of those engines. What we are seeing in many of those plumes is that the central airstream is clear. That is, the air that's coming from the power plant, from the core, that is emitted out the center of the rear vent of the engine is clear. However, the air that is being emitted around that central core, like a donut, that air has plumes. It's very thick with a fog-like plume. What is this telling us? Well, let me tell you one other anomaly that we've seen with these engines. We have other photographs showing that the air coming out of the back of this engine, the plumes that are forming out the back are actually located at the top of the airstream and the bottom. Or in other jets, we see the plume forming on the left and right of the emitted airstream out the back. And it kind of combines as it gets further behind the jet over a period of a few seconds, 5 or 10 seconds, it kind of combines and gets mixed up. But you can see in these close-up photographs that the plumes are actually formed either on the top and bottom of the airstream coming out the back or the left and right. What does this mean? Well, what the government and NASA and textbooks are now telling the public and teaching your children, they are teaching them that these massive plumes coming out of the back of these engines is simply condensation caused by the burning of jet fuel. And they will give you these nice formulas showing, oh, when you burn jet fuel, it turns into water, which is somewhat true in a situation when you would have a high oxygen atmosphere, which we do not. And they don't tell you that. What we do see, I hear Gary might be coming on the phone with us here in a second. I think I hear some talk back there. And if you do want to come on, just let me know, Gary. But this information I want to share with you is that if that plume coming out of the back of the engine was entirely caused by condensation from the burning of petroleum fuel, from kerosene, from jet fuel, then it would be coming out the center of the donut of the airstream and spreading out from there. But when we see these jets that have the central airstream clear, and now we have pictures of jets where the plumes are coming from the upper and the lower part of the outer airstream, or the left and right side of the outer airstream, what this is telling us is that these injectors that are injecting the aerosols into the engine must be located in these particular jets at the top and the bottom of the engine, or the left and right side of the engine, in what's called the bypass airstream. This is the air that just that is not combusted at all. This is the air that just passes through the engine. It's blown. It's sucked in the front of the engine and blown out the back. If this was condensation, you would see all of the condensation coming from the combusted fuel in the center of the airstream, not in the left and right side of the outer bypass airstream, and not in the top and bottom. This is hard evidence that there are injectors in the engine blowing aerosol particulates in the bypass air. This is astonishing. If you have pictures showing this phenomenon, I've seen a number of them now, close-up pictures of these jets, send them to me, russ@globalskywatch.com. Post them on the internet with an explanation of what we're looking at. The stuff that I just told you, I have never seen or heard anyone talk about anywhere else. We do have an article on globalskywatch.com talking about this that wasn't written that long ago. But this is astonishing hard evidence that these aerosol particulates are being intentionally pumped into the bypass airstream of the high bypass turbofan engines. I hope you understood what I'm saying. If you have any questions or would like to talk about this, give me a call right now. You can get the phone number from globalskywatch.com/live, or I'll read it to you right now. The phone number is 605-562-3140, and you'll need an access code, which is 156230. Gary, I just heard some noise coming from your phone. I don't know if you have somebody ready to speak to us or not. If so, you're welcome to come on right now. If not, no problem. Keep your phone muted if you like, and I'll just go on a little bit longer here, trying to educate our friends who are listening about this issue. I would really love to hear anyone. Oh, I'm looking at the chat. There's Vincent. Vincent, good to hear from you. Hi. He says, hi, Russ. Hi to you, Vincent. Thanks for joining us here. If any of you who are listening know anyone or are at a global march yourself, please call in. Let us know how it's going. Let us know what the response of the people were that you were talking to. Let us know what we can do better in the future. I'd really love to hear from you. So please call in, globalskywatch.com/live. You can get the phone number there, and let us know how your march went in your area. There are phone numbers for the United States and in about 15 countries outside of the United States. Love to hear from you. Please call in, and when you dial that number, you'll be connected, and we'll be conferencing on the phone, just like we're having a conference call. That's what I'd like to do. Don't be afraid. Don't be timid. We need you. We need to hear how things went. I hope that you just listened to my explanation about what we're seeing in some of these photographs. If you have close-up photographs of the air coming out of high bypass turbofans, send them to me at russ@globalskywatch.com or post them on our Facebook group, which is called Chemtrails Global Skywatch. Beware that there are counterfeit groups. These are created by government shills, military contractors that are trying to confuse the public on this issue. Let me explain something about this for those who don't know. I had a man call me a couple years ago when I was doing the radio show every Monday night. He called me and said, I am mad. This was just a personal phone call. It wasn't on the air. And I said, what's going on? He said, I have a friend that I was in the military with. We served for a few years. He just notified me that he was contacted by his former commanders and set up as a military contractor. This is what this man told me. Set up as a military contractor to hire a group of guys and girls that sit in a room, a couple hundred of them, sit in a room, they create Facebook accounts, blogs and websites on the internet for the intention of convincing people that the trails in the sky are not aerosols, but just harmless contrails. And also thrust upon the public other disinformation as well. This is military money, military contractor set up to disinform, to lie to the public about what's going on over their heads that is affecting our own health. My health right now, as I sit here with my sinuses almost completely swollen shut because of the intensity of the stuff that's in the air, which has been steadily increasing over the last 10 minutes. And it's making me sound more and more like I have a cold. It's simply the inflammation in my sinuses. It affects me and gives me a headache, muscle pain, joint pain, fatigue, and a host of other issues that I've heard from hundreds and hundreds of people over time. This man who called me was angry at his buddy and said, how could you do that? The guy, this guy's buddy, military buddy, was making so much money. He bought a house on the water and was living the rich life. And said, man, this is great. He's living the rich life now because he heads a company that lies to the public and ends up, because of that disinformation, the public is disarmed, the public is disinformed, and it makes it hard for the public to believe this is really happening. They ridicule people like me, and I have been ridiculed. You know, I've got people set up websites calling me, saying I'm claiming to be a doctor, saying I'm anti-Semitic, whatever they can to try to slander me, you know, none of which are true. I'm just a guy who did this, who does this because I'm angry. I almost died because of these chemical aerosols, because of the barium that lowered my potassium to a level that virtually almost killed me. God knows how many other people have come to death or close to death because of a combination of inflammation and or barium toxicity or aluminum toxicity or the other things that we're finding in these tests. This is the world we live in. Well, this is a spontaneous episode of Global Skywatch Radio. This is a live stream that we started specifically to get anybody on the air who's been to a march today or who is at a global march right now who wants to call in and let us know how it's going, what's going on. Would love to have had some people call in. I guess you're all busy or maybe nobody has heard about this, but would love to have had some people participate in this, more people. But nevertheless, there have been many people out marching today for which I am eternally grateful, and I'm trying to do my part by getting the word out, providing teaching materials, flyers, downloadable materials to help support those who are out on the front lines doing this. I was invited to speak at a couple events in Albany, New York, and in another location, and I had to decline. I just don't have the money or time to travel. If I had donations for travel money, I may very well have been able to pull it off, but it's just it's very expensive and it's hard for me because I have to make a living as well. As much as I would like to speak publicly on this, Um, Also knowing that I do have some unique information because I do smell and taste these plumes. Um, I know about the descent time of the particulates. I know what they smell and taste like. I know what health effects they give people. And uh, it's just been it's been a real ride for me personally. It's been a real difficult ride for me personally, having to put up with the health effects of the spraying. I first experienced this spraying in 2003. I was on the way back from a convention in California, and I stopped at Yosemite. It was at El Capitan, the big rock, taking pictures out there. And Yosemite Park was beautiful, and there was all these lines in the sky. And I got sick that evening, and I had burning in my sinuses, and I did not make the connection at that time. I was like, what are all these lines? What's been going on here? Because I knew that those engines do not produce trails. Now, in certain situations, when you have fighter jets, which are not high bypass or low bypass turbofan, well, some of them are low bypass, but jet engines that work differently, that are very inefficient, but they produce a very, very high velocity stream of air, you may see trails under certain circumstances come out of jet fighters, but you're not going to see it come from high bypass turbofans, which are on all large military and commercial jets today. You're not going to see it. So that was my first experience. The time I saw it happen daily, I lived in Jamestown, New York. And I had an employee meeting. I'll never forget it. It was November. I had started having a bunch of health problems and started seeing lines in the sky before November 2005 when I lived in Jamestown. I started having these strange symptoms. Like I would wake up in bed and my eyes would literally be so dry. I've never had any of these problems before. My eyes were so dry I could not physically open them without great pain. It was as if my eyelids were stuck to my eyeball, sort of. And I had to massage my eye to get enough moisture to open my eyes in the morning. And then that went away. It's almost as if they were releasing too much barium salt or other absorbing ions into the air, and they probably, I believe they use the phone monitoring program as a feedback mechanism so they can see what the reactions of people are so they can adjust the intensities. This is what monitoring the public is really all about. I believe is they're getting feedback about the spray programs, how they're affecting people, because they don't want people to notice it's going on. They want people to be sick and not really ever make the connection. So in the beginning, I didn't. I had these strange problems, strange health problems that were kind of ongoing for a few months. And I didn't have any idea what was going on. I was just totally confused by them. And the dry eye in the morning thing was one of them. And for the previous 4.5 years, after my amalgams had been removed, my dental amalgams, the silver fillings, I had no health problems whatsoever. Absolutely the best years of my life. So then, in November 2005, I had an employee meeting. I had 3 employees for my small business at the time. I don't have any employees anymore, but I did at the time. And I had an employee meeting planned for like 4:30, something like that. And all of a sudden, I started tasting salty metal in the air. My eyes started burning. My nose swelled up, much like it is now. My sinuses are about 85% swollen shut right now. You might be able to hear it in my voice a little bit. It's almost like I have a cold, but it's inflammation from the particulates that they are spraying in the air. And I can taste it. I can taste the metallic taste in the air. And right now there's a combination of a metallic taste, a burnt plastic taste, and another taste that tastes like model cement, like the cement you use to make little models, plastic models. And I know this scent because when I was a child, rockets and jets. I had models of rockets and jets I would put together, and I knew what this stuff smelled like. And that's exactly what it smells like. That's one of the component scents in there. So this employee meeting I was about to have with my employees, which I did every day or every other day while I lived in Jamestown, I canceled it because the pain, my headache, my joint pain, muscle pain, sinuses were so intense I couldn't even hardly think straight. I was just like, what is going on? And I looked out the window. I'm like, what is in the air? Because I could taste this salty, intense, salty, metallic taste in the air. And I'm like, what on earth is going on? And of course, I looked out, and there were these trails that must have been laid down 30 minutes earlier that had spread out. And I started, for the first time, that's when I had a revelation. I looked at those trails and I said, what is going on with these trails? I know I had seen them around town for the previous few months. And I also know that high bypass turbofans don't create trails. And some of these trails were right over my house. And I'm like, what is going on? So I had to cancel my employee meeting because I was feeling too horrible. I couldn't even focus. And two of my employees, and my employees were brilliant, incredible. I had two guys and a girl, just honored to work with these guys. Brilliant. So blessed was I to find them. And we all went out and started looking at these trails, and like they were kind of looking at them interesting too, like what is this all about? And after that point, I started watching them daily, and I started noticing the patterns immediately because I could taste and smell this stuff in the air. They would spray very low altitudes. I mean, you could see all four of their jets. I mean, if they had big markings on them with some weak binoculars, you would have been able to read the numbers. They were really low. And the very first ones I saw had red jets and a red tail. That was for the first 6 months or so, maybe plus or minus. After that, they all were silver unmarked. But the very, very first ones over Jamestown had all four engines were painted red, and the tails were red. And the other thing I noticed is they flied on a schedule. There was about plus or minus 30 minutes tolerance to their schedule. And about 30 to 40 minutes after they sprayed, the salty metallic taste filled the air, and all of my symptoms came at the same time and were absolutely overwhelming. And this is when I started making the connection, because every single day when they sprayed, 30, 40 minutes later, I tasted the taste and had all of the corresponding symptoms. That's what happened to me. And I started keeping track. I started watching the schedule. I started noticing what days are lighter, because they would have certain days that were lighter than others. And it was it became predictable. And it ruined my health to the point where I could no longer sleep at night. In fact, it made doing business very, very hard, because I had employees coming over at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't get in. I couldn't work until, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because I couldn't sleep through the night, because that's when they sprayed heavily. And immediately I went online. This day in November, I went online and I started looking up jet trails, and immediately found stuff about what they called chemtrails or geoengineering, with pictures of exactly what I was seeing. And I said, that's what I'm seeing, and that's what I'm tasting and smelling in the air. No question in my mind. They all correlated with each other. And now, 10 years later, they still correlate with each other. It still all happens at the same time. So, this was my introduction to stratospheric aerosol geoengineering. And for the last 10 years, I've suffered with heart issues, headaches, pain, inflammation, fatigue, sleep issues, digestive issues, and they all correlate with the intensity of the aerosols in the air at any given time. And I want to say this dogmatically, without apology, without repentance. I will say this because it is the truth. Because I can smell and taste them, and hundreds of people have smelled them and tasted them and contacted me with their stories, which are identical to mine. That portion of the population that can smell and taste these aerosols in the air will tell you that their symptoms increase with the intensity. When they and there are different types. I've identified 10 different scents and tastes that are sprayed now, and at different times in the last 10 years, they would spray in different ways. Like, for instance, during the daytime, they would spray the salty, metallic tasting type, and during the nighttime, they would spray the metallic, copper tasting type. And over time, different ones were introduced. Like the copper metallic tasting one was something that just came in 2011. Shortly before that, a year before that, there was one that I called the swamp water type that actually gave me a sore throat. Whenever this stuff was sprayed through the night, I would wake up, along with many other people would report to me, with sore throats. And in fact, that swamp water type, the reason I call it the swamp water type, the reason I call all of these things what I do is because of the taste and smell that they have. The swamp water type tastes like a combination of algae and mushrooms together. And it actually has an effect and scent in my sinuses that is identical to the breath of someone who has a respiratory infection. Let me explain this. Because of my sensitive sense of taste and smell, I have been able to smell somebody's upper respiratory infection. If I was close enough to smell somebody's breath and they had a respiratory infection, there's a certain scent and sensation that goes along with that that is completely unique. And I've been able to do this since I was a kid. And these people who had this infection, if they didn't already have a cold or flu symptoms, when I would smell this on their breath, they would the next day. Almost invariably, they'd be sick within 24 hours, maybe 2 days at most. But even as a child, I started to identify that scent and that sensation in my sinuses is the preamble to somebody getting sick with a flu or with a cold. In 2010, that same scent and same nasal sensation I began to experience, and it correlated with my immune system being very stressed and with other people around me in my neighborhood locally getting sick. If they sprayed that type for 3 days in a row, many people started getting flu and cold symptoms in this area. If there's one time here in Maine, they sprayed it in the area I lived in 3 weeks in a row, every single day for 3 weeks. They shut down the schools. The pediatricians' offices were backed up for 3 weeks. Everybody was sick. It was incredible. And I stand here throwing my arms up in the air as everybody says, wow, it's something going around. And I'm sitting here saying, it's not going around. It's coming down. It's coming down. And now that swamp water type that I believe must be bacterial, viral, fungus, mold, something, probably bacterial and viral based on the fact that it has the same scent. Possibly bacterial and viral based on the fact that people have that it causes people to get cold and flu symptoms. They correlate all the time. And with me, anytime they spray this through the night, I wake up with a sore throat and I put my wet mask on. Within an hour, it's gone. Or I take immune stimulators and within an hour or two, it's gone. Always correlates with that particular chemtrail type. Having said that, that particular type started in this area. This was after I moved to Bangor area, Maine. I moved out of Jamestown because the spraying there was so bad I had to leave. In 2008, I thought I was going to die. I still own my house there. In fact, I still own my house. I left hurriedly because I was getting so sick, and it was all from the spraying. Inflammation, pain, headaches, heart problems, a lot of heart problems. Now that I've learned, as I told you earlier about my heart attack, Barium dramatically reduces potassium in the human body. In fact, barium is used to artificially induce heart attacks in laboratory animal testing. It can induce heart attacks in humans as well. Guess what? I started taking large doses of potassium, and guess what happened? My heart problems reduced dramatically. So another piece of evidence that once you know what the problem is and what the cause is, you can more properly and more effectively deal with it. So this was another one of the types, the swamp water type that I experienced back in 2011 or 2010 is when they started that type. And I could go into this. I've actually given many interviews where I've gone into great detail about the altitudes of the spraying and how you can tell if they're low altitude or high altitude. Because when they're low altitude, when the plume comes right on you, if you graph the intensity curve, they come on you very, very quickly, and they decline very, very quickly. So when they come on very fast, if you were to curve the intensity, if the intensity grows in 60 to 120 seconds to full intensity, then I can tell you that the plume will probably be passed over mostly in about 10 to 20 to 30 minutes, and it will decrease more quickly than an average plume does. That works just like clockwork. On the other hand, that's because what I call the edge resolution of the plume is very sharp. That means that the distance between a very low intensity particulates in the air and very high intensity is very small because the plume has descended on you directly from the air or near you, and it hasn't had time to spread out yet. If the plumes are sprayed from a high altitude, however, they will have low edge resolution. What this means is that the edges become dissipated. And so instead of the plume coming over you very quickly, it'll slowly increase in intensity over the period of 10, 20 minutes. And when that happens, you know that it's going to be on you for a longer time, and it's going to decrease gradually as well, because the edges have already diffused and dissipated so that there's not as much sharpness to the edge of the plume. And this, again, is very consistent. This has become part of my life. When I see a plume come over with low edge resolution, with very soft edges, I know it's going to be here for a while. When I see a plume come over that has very hard edges, then I know it's going to pass very quickly. And so I live my life accordingly. I always have my wet mask with me wherever I go, so I can put it on if I need it, if it's intense enough. But it just become part of my lifestyle, because this is how it works. Another possibility for another scenario that would provide a plume that has low edge resolution is if it was sprayed several miles upwind, it descended to ground level, and now it's blowing along the ground, and the edges are further dissipating. So therefore, if you were to graph intensity on the x-axis on the y-axis versus time on the x-axis, you would have a much gentler slope upward. And again, same thing happens. When you have that gentle slope upward, you have a slow decrease in the intensity at the tail end of the plume. This also holds true when you're driving. I've noticed that when I'm driving into Bangor, that very often the plume will increase. You'll drive in and out of plumes. Now, these plumes are not visible, but I'll get into that in a minute. You can actually see artifacts of these plumes in the air. And before I go on and tell you this, if you have been to a march today or you know somebody who was, please call in. Go to globalskywatch.com/live. Call in using the phone number on that webpage, globalskywatch.com/live. Call in using that phone number and the access code, and let's chat. I'd like to know how the march went, how people responded, and what we can learn about the future. As you're driving, you often drive in and out of plumes. So I notice sometimes when I'm driving into Bangor, Maine, because I live outside of Bangor, you'll drive in and out of plumes. So it'll become intense, and then the intensity will drop. A few minutes later, it'll go up again. It'll go down. As you're driving, in and out of these plumes that are twisting and turning and diffusing in the air. And for me, as sensitive as I am, I can take 1 or 2 breaths in past the air over my tongue and through my sinuses, and I can tell you, I give you a number between 1 and 10, telling you what the intensity of the particulates are in the air, and I can tell you what type they are. I can tell you whether they're the salty metallic type, which is not sprayed much anymore, by the way. All of the types that were less reactive, less harmful to my health, have been discontinued or sprayed much less frequently, and the ones that are more harmful are the ones that have become the most commonly sprayed. Just as an aside. So, as you're driving and these plumes are diffusing and blowing around, you can smell and taste them with just 1 or 2 breaths can smell or taste what the intensity and what the type is that is in the air at any given time. I mentioned a second ago about seeing them in the air. When I first started experiencing this in Jamestown, back in 2005, I noticed something that I'd never seen before in my entire life, is at night, if you looked at a street light or a light in a parking lot, I would notice that there was a strange orange halo, orange yellowish halo around the lights. And the thing that was absolutely fascinating was that they were very uniform, and I had never seen them before. The other thing I noticed is that the visibility of these halos around the lights was directly proportional to the intensity of the smell and taste of the particulates in the air. There was a direct correlation. If the air intensity of the particulates was really strong, my sinuses were burning, I could smell the chemicals, I could taste the metal, then these halos around the lights were very, very apparent. A lot of people have taken pictures of sundogs or halos around the sun. Again, a phenomenon for those of you who are new to this and who have not been skywatchers like myself, this is a brand new phenomenon. I've never seen a halo like that around the sun before my entire life that we see now on a regular basis. That's always associated with the acetone chemtrail type, by the way. But nevertheless, these halos would appear around streetlights, and they were in direct proportion to the intensity of the particulates in the air. The other thing that I noticed is that, or I deduced anyway, is that the uniformity of the shape. Now, when you have moisture in the air, and moisture causes a haze around lights, the particulate, the size of the droplets in the air is not uniform. And therefore, the reflective angles that you'll have coming through those particulates and reflecting off of those particulates is not going to be uniform either. So you just see a blob. It's kind of just a bright blob, a bright, nondescript, illuminated area around a streetlight from moisture. And that's normal. That's what I've seen all my life. When there's enough moisture in the air to have a little bit of fog, that's what you'll see. The interesting thing about this phenomenon, however, the halos, is that it would occur on very dry nights when there was very little humidity, virtually no, very dry air, and the shape was very uniform. It was very well defined, very uniform, and very consistent. And what this told me from simple physics is that meant that the particulate shape was very uniform. And in order to create such a uniform shape, and again, I was shocked that people did not notice this. I mean, why are people looking at street lights and lights going, what is that halo? I've never seen that before. But what's amazing to me is people doubt themselves. They just say, oh, I must have missed it in the past, or maybe I didn't. Maybe I did see it all my life and I just didn't realize it. Well, I pay attention to these things, and I'd never seen anything like this before in my life. It was astonishing, because I always want to know what these things are. I like science. I love science. I love physics. This is fascinating stuff. To me, anyway. So the shapes are very uniform. And what this told me was that the particulate shape must be uniform. And what this tells me is that they must be artificial. If it was a dust storm, or if it was moisture, you have different sizes and shapes of particulates, and therefore you get a nondescript, non-uniform blob of reflective halo around a light source. However, when you look at a light and you have a perfect spherical halo, the particulates must be uniformly shaped. And that told me furthermore, beyond the fact that I could smell and taste this, that that was from an artificial source. The fact that HEPA filters do not remove this from the air tells me they must be smaller than 0.3 micron. So, and of course that makes them all the more dangerous because the health dangers of particulates in the air are measured by the density. That means how many particulates are there within a given unit of space, and the smallness. The smaller the particulate, the more dangerous, reactive, and more of a health hazard that it is. And this should be very alarming to everyone. So these are my experiences with chemtrails. I'm sitting here and wanted to share all this information with anybody who was interested in hearing this, because I'm angry about this, because it has ruined my life for the past 10 years. I'm angry mostly at the general public who chooses not to know and not to do anything because the subject is too scary. People make excuses, and this is part of knowing yourself. You know people like this because you've wanted to tell your friends and your family, and they say things like, the government would never do that, or if they were really doing that, I'd know about it. And those two presumptions themselves are based on faulty assumptions about how the world really works. For instance, remember back a few minutes ago when I was talking about amalgam fillings, for the first 5 years after my amalgams were removed, and I went up to strangers all the time and said, and told them about their fillings, they would say, this is what they would tell me, the government would never allow that to happen if it was harmful. 5 years later, everybody was saying, yeah, I believe it. People became wiser about the evil, the greed, the destructiveness of these people who allow this to happen. The FDA, who has never regulated these devices, who ignore all the evidence, who have lied about things that harm us. But anyway, people began to become more aware of this. And so you hear when you tell people about these chemical aerosols that they say the government would never do this. Well, what you have to understand is the government agencies are created to protect the industries that they regulate. That's called controlled regulation, period. Controlled regulation. So the FDA protects the pharmaceutical industry. They do this while maintaining a public appearance of protecting the public from the pharmaceutical industry. So you'll hear every so often that the pharmaceutical giant has been fined $100 million. Well, number one, $100 million is pocket change to a pharmaceutical company. And number two, you don't know if those fines are ever paid. Likely they're never paid. That's just the disinformation for public consumption. Secondly, and I know some people who hear this kind of stuff say that could never be pulled off. When you understand that the same people control mainstream media, then of course they could pull it off. In fact, they've been pulling it off for decades, and much longer than that. You know? You have to understand the structure of something to understand how it works. So you've been told that the government would never do something like that, when in fact, you know, we look at government and we don't want to sound unintelligent and say, oh, the government did it, the government did it. It's industrialists who control government. And this has happened throughout history. This is historic fact. This is the way the world works. And people who have forgotten that the industrialists of a city or of a country take over the government of that country, that's just the way it works. As long as the public isn't paying attention, that's exactly what they do. That's historic fact. That's the way the world works. And it's no different today. In fact, it's much more intense today. The corruption is much more intense because with technology, there's much more ability to spread disinformation and control the flow of information, to control what people believe. And so people believe that it would never happen, the government would never allow something like this to happen, don't understand what controlled regulation is. They also don't understand what controlled opposition is. Controlled opposition is a technique of buying and controlling your opposition. So if you are a pharmaceutical company and you have losses to your income being caused by herb manufacturing companies, then you want to buy out those herb manufacturing companies and eventually slowly drive them into the ground and limit through regulation what they're allowed to say about their products, which is exactly what's happened today and is happening right now. That's controlled opposition. You control your opposition. The best way to win a contest is to control both sides. That's a quote from Memoirs, the book written by David Rockefeller. And that's exactly what they do. The third thing people have to be aware of that would make a statement like, oh, the government wouldn't allow that to happen, is to understand that the same people control government through all the various means they use. You have to remember, if you control media, you control government because you control elections. If you control media, you control elections. If you control elections, you control government. And the people who do this know that. So the third mechanism they use is social counterbalancing. And what this is a social counterbalance is someone in mainstream media. A lot of people have been fooled by this, and people who are in the truth movement, people who are trying to spread the truth and help their friends and family understand how the world really works, have to understand this. If you've got somebody on mainstream media talking your belief system, opposing other forms of mainstream media, claiming to uncover the corruption in the other areas of mainstream media, this person is acting as a social counterbalance. This is how it works. When you see corruption, it makes you angry. And you eventually become motivated to do something about it. Well, your opposition, those industrialists do not want you to do that. They don't want you to do anything because your apathy and your inaction allows them to continue to control and corrupt the systems that profit them. Therefore, they want you to be apathetic and inactive. And one of the most, arguably the most effective way that they do this is by social counterbalancing. And what social counterbalancing is by putting on mainstream media a talking head, a personality that talks what you believe, that speaks and fights for, quote unquote, what you believe. And what this does is it makes you tune in every day, every night, every week when this personality is on, because it makes you feel better. It makes you feel like somebody is fighting for you. Somebody is verbalizing your position. And what is the net effect of this on the population? The net effect is that it makes you inactive and it calms your emotions. It takes away your emotional drive because you feel like something is being done. Number one. And number two, therefore, because you no longer have that burning anger about what is wrong and what is corrupt and how it's affecting you and your family, you don't do anything because you believe somebody's speaking for you. You believe somebody's fighting for you. And it has been said that one of the most destructive forces in any movement is false hope. These social counterbalances give you hope that somebody is fighting for you and something is being done, when in reality, those talking heads on the nightly news are doing nothing more than making you feel better so you'll do nothing. Because it is your job to straighten the mess out. It is your job, and they will never do it for you. This is why you can finally put the pieces together and understand that those people you've watched on mainstream media that have made you feel good, they're fighting for us. They're telling the truth, and they do tell the truth. How else could they win you over? How else could they disarm you? How else could they make you feel good unless they told the truth? And you think except those people who really understand how this works. Those people who want truth, who are upset, really think, they really get a sense of hope. They really think those people are fighting for them, when really those people are having exactly the opposite effect. They're shutting down the movement, making everybody inactive. And rather what they do is they sit down every night, they listen to the talking head that makes them feel the best because he or she says what makes them what they believe in, verbalizes what they believe in. And therefore the public does nothing, which is exactly what the industrialists want. That is how it works. So if you see somebody on mainstream media and they're there for any length of time, they are not your friend. Period. Now, the only exceptions to that are people like, and I can't pronounce his name, but there's a guy from a group called the Young Turks. Now, I believe these people expose corruption, and this guy, I don't know how to pronounce his name probably, but if you've watched the Young Turks, you know who these people are. They recently covered a particular subject. I didn't agree with them. I don't agree with them 100%, but most of what they do is uncover corruption and talk about injustice, and they do a pretty excellent job of doing it. They really do. Again, I don't believe everything totally with them, but I mean they're doing an excellent job. So this guy was given a show on mainstream media, and he lasted a very short time. And now it's actually on YouTube, where he went back to the Young Turks. He went back to his show and told the story of how they told him, this is the way it's going to be, or you're out of here. You're going to say it this way. You're going to spin it this way. You're going to do it this way. And you can go on YouTube and look it up and find this video, because that's the way it really works. So they gave him a shot. He wouldn't toe the line for mainstream media, for the industrialists, and they threw him off. So anybody who really tells the truth, who is not towing the line for the industrialists, is not going to last long. If you see somebody in mainstream media who's there for a long period of time, they're not your friend. They're just making you feel better. And what you have to realize is that just because somebody makes you feel good doesn't mean they're your friend. Your real friends are those who tell you the truth, even if it hurts. And that is what we have to do. That is the type of maturity that we all have to have. And when we tell our friends and our family and strangers on the street, hey, you're being sprayed from the air, that is an act of concern, an act of love. That is an act of wanting to help them, yourself, the world. But the problem is that people have been slowly conditioned to become so emotionalistic, so obedient to every feeling they have, rather than logic, rather than reason, rather than discerning the truth from the lie, the good from the bad, regardless of their emotion. People have been indoctrinated, and this is in movies all the time. I mean, it's amazing. When you understand these techniques, every movie you see, every Saturday morning cartoon, commercials, it's replete in media today. It's all about how you feel. Even commercials, car commercials, it's not about how was the car built, what materials do they use, what is the safety record, what, I mean, you'll hear that here and there, but the vast majority is how you're going to feel driving it, how you're going to feel owning it. So what you do is you emotionalize the population. This is what they have done. They emotionalize the population so they no longer have the ability to discern. And then when you go and you tell your friends and family and people on the street the truth, you become rejected because they are so immature emotionally that they judge whether what you are telling them is good or bad by how they feel about what you tell them, rather than the actual credibility after a little research of what you're saying. And that is why when you try to have a conversation with people today, you can't hold their attention for more than 30 seconds to a minute, because they've already made up their minds. because their minds are made up by how they feel. And they're not willing to listen to you explain the things that don't yet make sense to them. Because when you tell somebody the truth, you have to explain why that doesn't fit their worldview. You have to help them understand that your current worldview has been shaped by disinformation. And if they're not willing to have an attention span that goes beyond their emotional capability, they will never learn this. It takes time to change your worldview. It takes time to understand why certain things that happen in the world don't make sense. If you believe that all countries are, or even most countries are acting autonomously, or you believe that they're acting in their own self-interest, then the world won't completely make sense to you, but the disinformation will. But when you understand that these countries have been systematically conquered through history, and you can learn about this from very credible sources and research, this is nothing that's hard to find. None of this is hard to find. That the countries act in concert. This is why, even during the Cold War, the U.S. and Russia had space programs together. They had technology development together. They did all kinds of things together during the Cold War. Why? Because they're not really enemies. At the top levels, they're the same entity. They're the globalists at the head. But they have to have the facade that there's an enemy, because that is how they make their money. Because when there's an enemy, you need a military. And when you have a military, you have black budgets. And when you have black budgets, you have cash flows. You have cash flows that are unimaginable to the typical person who doesn't understand how the world works. These contracts are given to companies that make hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to private companies that are the buddies of the globalists. And so they use your money to pay off the criminals, to keep you poor, to keep you sick, and to keep the world at war, when it's all a big facade. And in my lifetime of researching conspiracies, in my lifetime of doing research, I don't know everything. Nobody does. Because it's huge. You can learn and learn and learn the depths of it and the characters involved. But it doesn't take that long to get the big picture. You can really get the big picture if you really want to understand the big picture. But what you will discover if you really go down this road and you start researching is, first you'll find a little corruption, and then you'll find a conspiracy, a group of people that conspire together to lie to the public or lie to somebody, make money, gain power. And then you'll find another one, and another one, and then you'll see that all those guys are buddies, and they all work for someone else. And then those guys all work together and coordinate their efforts with someone else. And then you'll find out that people who are in office and legislators have changed laws to make the corruption, to facilitate the corruption. And it goes on and on and on, and you start realizing, you finally one day, when you've done enough research, you look deep enough and hard enough, you've realized the very difficult truth that the conspiracy is huge, it's global, and once you understand that, the control is virtually complete. Then you understand why the United States and Soviet and communist countries work closely together even when there was a Cold War. And you also understand how and why global geoengineering chemical aerosol spray programs started in all of the countries and continue to go on in all the countries, because they're all working together. And the only way that the industrialists can explain this to the public, to try to disarm the public, is to say, oh no, they've always been there. So they start producing old photographs, old videos, sometimes artificially aged. I knew about this 25 years ago when I was doing research, artificially aging documents and books to convince the public to change history, because he who controls history controls the future. And that is the point, is control. And you realize when you do research that this goes so deep, so far, and that the control is so complete that it is so scary that most people don't even want to know about it. And that is what we have going against us. As for myself, I have a belief system and I have a near-death experience that make me a lot braver. Because what I have left in my life is a gift, because I feel as if I almost died a couple years ago as a result of the chemical aerosol spraying. And that gives me a tremendous freedom to say whether I live or whether I die, it does not really matter. Just like the priest said in the movie Stigmata, "El mensajero es importante." He said the messenger is not important. It's the message that is important. It is the truth that is important. And that is why throughout history there's always been people who stand up against the system and try to tell you the truth at great risk to themselves. And it is the freedom of not caring anymore what happens to yourself, that you don't covet the belongings in your life, that you don't covet your life, you don't hold on to the toys in the world which are so adamantly given to you for the purpose of controlling you through covetousness, that you can finally be free and say, I don't care about those things anymore. What's important is the truth. And the truth will set you free. Free from fear. Free from oppression. Free at last. I hope that everyone that hears this recording, I know it's being streamed live right now, and there's a handful of people listening. Who knows how many or how few will ever hear this? But it is my hope, because I live every day wondering how much longer I will live, with the chronic pain that I have, with the chemicals in the air that are destroying my body, knowing that the world controlled by so many industrialists, like I talked about earlier, those disinformants who sell their souls to lie to the public so they can make a paycheck. They can have a house on the water so they can live the good life. You have to ask yourself, these people have to ask themselves, is this good life worth what's coming after? Is this good life worth sacrificing truth, worth sacrificing lives? What we can hope for is there will be enough people who are brave to face the truth and stop this chemical assault that is going on right now, that I taste and I smell 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every plume that comes through, every different type of trail that passes by. I wonder how much longer, every single day, how much longer are we going to live in a gas chamber created by our own collective apathy? Those who don't want to know the truth, who don't want to wake up, who are too afraid, enable this to continue. And it has to stop. With all my heart, I sincerely hope that the marches today woke up thousands and thousands of people, that tomorrow we'll begin searching and researching and finding the truth behind what is really going on in the world today. Because when you find the truth, you understand the big picture, it changes your life forever. It sets you free. And that is what I want for you and for any person who hears this. is for you to be ultimately free. Because by your freedom, you will provoke those around you to strive for freedom. Don't be afraid. There's really nothing to fear. Ultimately, there's nothing to fear. There's the illusion of fear. There's things that look fearful in front of us. Yes, there's real pain and suffering. There is absolutely real pain and suffering. But in the big scope of things, we will always be grateful that we did the right thing regardless of the circumstances. We need enough people who can actually believe that. Thank you to all those who made the march today possible. Thank you for your work, your dedication, because you are the heroes. You are the early adopters. You are the ones who change the world. And the world doesn't even know yet that you are the heroes. But just remember, let's stay humble and remember that it is not the messenger that is important, but it's the message. Because ultimately, each of us through the message can be free. We'll get together again soon. We'll have more conferences, more live streaming, and I hope that we can wake up the sleeping majority who is so caught up in their lives that they cannot see the very thing that is destroying their lives. For ourselves, for our families, for their sake, for the sake of our fellow mankind, whoever you are, wherever you're from, please keep fighting. Tell the truth. Be strong. Be fearless. Be mature. Be peaceful. Be peaceable. Because it is by your peaceful, reasonable, calm, collective action that we can make all the difference in the world. Each one of us has tremendous power, regardless of those who have bad reactions to the truth around us, and often realizing that those who have the worst reactions are the ones who have the biggest struggle within themselves. Don't let their reactions bother you. Just know that when you tell the truth, it begins a chain reaction of events in each person's heart where they're either going to decide to accept it or reject it. But even if they do reject it, there's pressure because they've heard it once. Advertisers know this because they're going to hear it again, and they're going to hear it again, and they're going to hear it again. And as that pressure increases, it will force them to become more mature, to face their own fears, to face and accept the truth, regardless of the fact that it does take work, it takes research, and it takes courage. Because you can only be free in a place where there is courage. Where there is no courage, there soon will be no freedom. So thank you to all of those who've been out there today acting courageously on behalf of not just their friends and their families, but on behalf of people that they will never meet. That, my friends, is love indeed. Thank you all, and good night.